Welcome to The Gap, where it's our mission to bridge the gap between training and on-field performance.
I'm Brett Hart, owner of Hitman Performance.
And I'm Dan Labadia, the owner of Jack Javelin.
Hope you guys enjoy the show.
So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be keeping this episode really short and concise and just going over the top 3 tips that we learned so far in our 3 years of coaching since we graduated college. And it's been 3 years since we've been working together as well. You know, we worked together for about a year and a half at a private sector gym, and then the last 2 years doing the podcast together. And so, yeah, we're just going to get right into it. But tip number 1 is going to be quantity over quality. So do you agree or disagree with this one?
Well, I agree. Just to give some context, it's pretty much how you start anything. The quantity of it, so like a total amount of volume, is going to speed run your progress. So if you're just a brand new lifter, don't worry about having a perfect training program, perfect optimization, everything's periodized out, you're doing everything percentage based. You just don't have a volume, you don't have a volume base to begin with. Like, you have no foundation. It's the same thing with coaching. You want to coach everyone and everything that comes through the door. And especially as a young strength coach, you're probably going to be making $15 an hour. You don't really have a say who you coach anyways. I know a lot of people get into it thinking they're going to be the Bobby Stroops or the Joe DeFrancos, and they're going to be coaching these high-level guys like Les Spellman, coaching these NFL dudes. No one knows who you are. You're not there yet. I'm not even there yet. I haven't really had any professional level players. I'm going to have one, but I'm not really working closely with them. So don't worry about making everything perfect. You need reps. You need a shit ton of reps. So whatever it is for coaching, whether it's a 12-year-old kid, a 50-year-old mom, a 16-year-old high school athlete, guy, girl, doesn't matter, whatever sport, like, just get your feet wet and make sure you know what you're doing on the training floor, and then just continuously doing that, and it will compound over time.
Yeah, and going back to that of just training anyone and everyone, you know, when I left college, I committed to coach javelin until my 2 teammates had graduated. So my 2 teammates, Nevin and Jordan, were a lot younger than me, and I was already kind of in that player coach role. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to that school. I'm going to coach them until they graduate, and then I'm going to be done with javelin and go more into the strength and conditioning and nutrition side of things, just for general sports performance. And when I got that taste of working with adults and high school athletes and youth athletes and college athletes that were all across the board doing general strength and conditioning, I enjoyed it, but I definitely found my passion in javelin, and I found that niche of javelin, and I saw that javelin throwers were gravitating towards me based on the work that I was doing with my 2 former teammates at the university that I was coaching at. People started reaching out for private lessons. Then people started reaching out online for stuff. And so that's how it compounds. It didn't start that way by me just going to the gym and being like, all right, I'm only going to work with javelin throwers that walk through the gym. I wouldn't have had any coaching hours.
You would have $0.
Yeah. I would have had no coaching experience. But what happened was I wasn't really sure where I was going to go. So allowing me to test the waters for 2 years at that private sector gym, and also still have my foot in the door at the university coaching javelin, allowed me to get a taste. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but it just, you know, it helped me feel like, all right, who did I want to coach, and in what aspect did I want to coach them? And as you kind of continue on, your people that you are meant to work with will gravitate towards you, and then you'll be able to do more and more of that and less of the people that you don't work as well with. But then also, that's how you become a better coach in general as well, because anyone can coach those high-level athletes and make them sprint fast and lift heavy and perform well, because they were genetically gifted to be able to do that anyway. You probably got them at the point where they were already pretty developed, so on and so forth. But working with those lower level, lower talented kids is going to help you actually learn how to help somebody move when they don't know how to move, and how to help their mobility before they go lift, and how you help their movement capacity before they sprint maximum speed, and so on and so forth. So just getting a lot of volume in terms of not only how many sessions you're doing in person, but the variety of people you're working with as well is super important before you try to niche down and work with a very targeted group and scale it back and start doing online stuff. I think that the in-person high volume is very important to know where you're going to go.
Yeah, 100%. And then the next one, we'll go into this, which this counts as the podcast as well, as continuing education. As a javelin coach, how important is it for you to just branch out, continuing to get smarter, perfecting your craft, and seeing what others have to say about your work and how you can make your work even better?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge, and I think that at a sport where not every school has a javelin guru, not especially at the high school and the high school level. So you really got to go out there and look and find better options and resources to help you. And then even at the college level, there's tons of shot put and hammer and discus coaches that are also coaching the javelin, and the javelin's not their forte. So as a javelin athlete, you need to have continued education. But then once you graduate, and say you are in the position that I'm in, you graduate from the university, there's a spot to be filled for a javelin coach. You're only going to know what you know. And there's more ways than one to throw far, right? There's a lot of different training systems out there that are very successful. I think Team Germany was very well known for this, where they had like 4 guys over 88 meters at one point, and they all had different coaches. And everyone was like, oh my God, Germany figured out the javelin. It's like they all came from a different system. They were just all happened to be from the same country. And you see that a lot. Even last year in the U.S., we had 6 different throwers throw 80 meters, which I think is really good for the U.S., and they all came from a different training system. And so it is important that you get outside your box and you go out there and learn from other people and experiment with other things. I've had a lot of success reaching out to baseball strength coaches and physical therapists like Dr. Heenan and Thomas Summers down in Florida. I've personally visited their facility before and trained in there, and gotten some tips and tricks from them in terms of like how they do things to develop power and coordination for pitchers, which has been super helpful for javelin throwers. And then on my trip to Florida, I also met with Tom Petranoff, who was the former world record holder, threw 99 meters with the old rule javelin and invented the turbo jav, and now coaches Donovan Banks, who threw 83 last year. So he's got a system that works for him. He has a very linear style of throwing mechanics that not a lot of people agree with. But for me, I'm like, hey, if you have a certain type of athlete that really struggles with that rotational aspect, then there's something to be said about that. And he also taught me a lot of different things about using the center of mass in your throw, not being too far forward when you hit your block, or not being too far back when you hit your block, or also not being too narrow with your feet, so you're falling side to side when you hit your block. So that kind of helped me view things in a different way of just getting linear through the javelin and keeping your center of mass stacked with your hips and your legs before you try to throw. So that really helped tie pieces in together. So, it goes back to Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life. One of them is you want to go into every conversation like someone can teach you something. And so even when I'm going into a conversation with someone that I may feel like I'm smarter than, I'm always trying to learn something and always trying to have that growth mindset. And then lastly, last year, I also coached at JavFest with the USA Javelin Project, Sean Fury, and former Olympian, and then went to the LSU camp and got coached by them as well. And so for me, like, I came from a background of learning from my private coach, Javelin Anatomy, and that was like all I knew until I started going out to 2 different baseball facilities and communicating with different baseball strength coaches online, and then going out to different javelin facilities and camps and learning from them and their style of doing things. And it really just helped me tie everything in together. Like, I had a great base of knowledge going into it. And then, that continued education really helped me kind of just create my own system. And I picked everything that I liked from each one and applied it to myself. Like we talked about last episode, was like apply what is useful and disregard what's not useful. And that's just basically what I've been doing with the javelin stuff. And, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't put myself out there and have those conversations and fly out there and learn, or drive, a couple hours and go coach for a weekend at the camp and stuff like that. So it's definitely been really, really helpful getting in those rooms with other people that are smarter and more successful than you.
Yeah, I mean, that's always great advice for any young strength coach too, coming up, of just continuing to learn everything there is to know about sports performance. There are a ton of coaches that have had great success that do completely different things. So like Dr. Joel Seedman has his guys, they do something completely different than Louis Simmons did for his guys, or Zach DeCant does at TCU, or Chris Martin at LSU, and all these guys that are out there that you can find on Instagram. It's really important to know what's useful, what's not useful, and that's where I think the reading comes into play. So on the Joe Padula podcast that's coming out after this one, he goes into it being like, you need to understand everything so you can have discussions on things that you don't necessarily agree with. And for me, that's huge for just continually knowing why you do something, like why the squat is a squat, and like what it is that you want it to be, like where you want it to go. Like, are you squatting just to get a better squat? Or are you trying to achieve force production and athletic qualities that help you go onto the field? If you're training the squat just to have a better squat, if you're playing football, you're probably using it the wrong way. You should probably transition to powerlifting if that's your thing. All right, so the exercises are the exercises, and they all have different responsibilities and correlations to what you want to see on the field. And I would never have known that if I didn't try to reach out to these guys, talk to some guys, listen to podcasts like this one, or the Just Fly Performance podcast, the Coach 'em Up podcast, Austin Yoakum's podcast, like listening to all these guys and listening to coaches that have had success in the field, that have skin in the game. I think that's extremely valuable to learn from and listen to what they have to say and learn from their mistakes so you don't make the same ones coming up as a strength coach. All right, so when I was 19, 20, 21, I was heavily influenced with Westside Barbell, Zach DeCant, and Austin Yoakum. Like, those are probably my top 3 people. If it wasn't for Instagram, I probably would have never known any of them. And all 3 of those guys have had great success with a lot of their athletes and with their business and with their continuing education and their roles of being educators in the field. So trying to find those niche group of people that you relate to, listen to what they have to say. A lot of them have long form content that you can go on and listen to, and a lot of it's free, and a lot of people don't take advantage of it.
Man, how do I hit a better block?
If only somebody made a YouTube video on how to do that.
Or 10.
Or there's a whole playlist dedicated to it. But that's the thing. It's like, there definitely isn't a scarcity of education out there. There is a surplus. There is a lot of education and knowledge out there for free that you can use. It's just important to discern what's useful and what's not. And the only way you get that is through experience and trying it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, just to talk a little bit about how I kind of sift through that. That's why I have my full free course. I'm adding like 5 chapters to it this year, and then hopefully it'll be done. Probably not, but I'm just, I've been adding to it like every year, and I think I'm done. But just with that, like, I have my YouTube and I have my Instagram, I have the podcast, I have the free course. So I do put out a ton of free stuff. And when people ask me for questions, if I'm not working with them, I just direct them to the free course or the YouTube or whatever. And then when they have those deeper questions, that's where I'm like, hey, you got to book a Zoom call with me, or book a lesson, or, sign up for the Velocity program, because that information is free, but the implementation is what I charge for, because I've spent the last 5 years studying this stuff, knowing what drills to use to fix what problems, knowing what mobility drills to use to fix certain movement imbalances, what strength exercises to use to fix certain parts of the javelin throw that you're deficient in, so on and so forth. Like, I've studied that for 5 years, and I have a whole system on it now. So if you want it, there's a lot of free stuff, a lot of great stuff. I encourage people to go use that for free and look through it on their own. But that's where, when you're getting the question after question after question about what do I do, it's like, that's where my value comes into play. And so, I definitely encourage people. Like, I did 2 this week of people that just have a lot of questions. I'm like, hey, listen, like, I'm not going to be able to provide you every answer just through the YouTube. Like if you want to know everything, like we gotta hop on a call. Other than that, we'll go into the last point here. Different types of coaching is point 3. And so what that means for me is essentially, as a javelin coach, I have my online coaching, like I just talked about, my Zoom calls and technical analysis and programming through my Velocity program. Then I have my club team group practices, 2 hours a week. So that's groups. Then I have a bunch of one-on-ones, which is in-person one-on-one. And then I also coach at meets. So that's like 4 different types of coaching, right? You're coaching at a competition, coaching group, coaching one-on-one, coaching online. And I think that it's super important to know how to coach in each facet. With the group coaching, I'm doing a lot of, all right, we're doing 2 people here, this station, 2 people here, this station, 2 people here, this station, quick demonstration. And then I just get the stopwatch.
And we going.
No, I'm just kidding. But then at that point where, it's a group, and like each person I'm correcting and adjusting a little bit as we go. And that's more for the community and have a fun environment, and for have everyone push each other and stuff like that. The one-on-ones is like a very dialed in session where that person is there to achieve a specific goal, whether that's better layback or better hip shoulder separation or better rhythm in their approach. We're targeting that whole hour to what that person needs to progress, right? Then online, it's just different. You need to be a lot more communicative for it to be effective. I don't like when people are running my Velocity program and then don't message me at least weekly. It gets very tough because then I kind of lose touch with them. So I encourage, that's something I'm trying to be better about too, is just sending everyone in the group a private message, because one thing that I'm personally working on a lot is building up the community aspect, because it's like I got 65 people in my Velocity program, and why every time I text in the group chat, no one's responding. Yeah. It's like, come on, man. Like,
somebody give me something, please. Yeah, like, show me that you're still alive.
Yeah, but then it's like when I message them directly, they'll respond. But it's just, I think building that online community is tough sometimes. And, I'm trying my best to keep that growing. And then coaching at meets, you got to keep it super simple. Like, you cannot overcomplicate it, because you want that kid thinking about one thing and one thing only. You want them feeling relaxed and comfortable and confident and just being able to go and throw their best. You don't want to overcomplicate anything and make them feel like they have that paralysis by analysis.
Yeah. I mean, in my field, with the private sector, there's not many, like when I was in the private sector, there's not many different forms of like events that will be happening. Like everyone usually comes in, but the people are completely different hour to hour. Mm-hmm. So that's where the adaptability has to come in, because how you train a 6-year-old mom, like that intensity might be different than the 18-year-old football kid that's going into college. Like, and then that's going to be different than the 10-year-old kid that just got dropped off for a youth speed class or something like that. So every hour could be a completely different client. And so that's why as a coach, you have to know how to talk to somebody, and you have to be personable. You have to be likable, like no trust, in order for them to pay money to train with you. It's a little bit different than the college sector. It's like you're the collegiate coach. You can kind of be the same depending on the team that you have. But if it's one team and you can pick one style of training that you want to do, and like that's just who you are, you can kind of be that for everyone, every session, right? Because that's just, there's not much change. There's not much variation going on. Like, yeah, from week to week, the session to session, it might alter depending on game weeks, in season, off season, stuff like that. But like if you're the football coach, you always know you're going to have football guys. Like if you're in private sector, you could have a football guy, a tennis girl, 8-year-old, a 7-year-old mom, like stuff that's completely different. A guy with a broken hip that just wants to bench press all the time. So like you're going to have different hats that you're going to have to wear. And my only thing that I was told is when you're a young coach, so when I was 22, I've told this twice by 2 different people, is that you have to make sure, like, I connect really well with the younger guys and just the high school kids in general, just because I'm not that far off in age, and I think I can relate to them a lot with like what they're still going through in the training process. But try not to just be all in on the friend, and you also don't want to all be in on the militaristic dictatorship coaching style. Like, you got to try to find the blend of both. Of, yeah, you can be their friend, you can hang out, dap them up, say what's up, like, hope everything's going well. But then when it's time to coach and they need to make an adjustment, that's when you break it down and you go into like coach mode. So you got to have both. You got to know when to turn it on, when to turn it off. You can't be a dick 100% of the time and expect the kids to come back, unless they're a little bit psychotic and they like to get beat up like that. But they want that personality. They want that feel. And if you're just not a personable dude, then good thing there's books and stuff to read on that and learn how to actually just be a decent human being.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I had to make that same adjustment when I went from being college teammate to then college coach. And, you know, we ended up having a lot of success when I transferred into coach, because I was already kind of that player coach beforehand anyway. But it definitely is an adjustment. But that's where I think that for me, a lot of times it was having really lighthearted times like during warm-ups, but then very intentional time during the training session, but then having a lot of like one-on-one meetings with them, not even that often, but just like once a month to like really touch base and set the tone and keep them on track, and just make sure that they know, you remind them that, you know, there's a job to be done and it's not just all fun and games all the time. And so you just got to always have that balance to, you know, keep them engaged, but reel them back in when things are getting a little too comfortable. But all right, that's it for the top 3 tips on what we learned our first 3 years in coaching. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in.
And if you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star rating and review and share the show, because the only way that this show grows is if you like it, share it, and tell your friends and family about it.
New episode every Monday.